Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of Board with Burn. Thanks so much to those who tuned in to episode 1 and saw my tutorial of terraforming Mars. If you're interested and haven't checked it out already, you can check it out using the link, which I think is going to be somewhere up there, or check it out on my channel. Someone also asked to see what my board game collection looked like, so I brought a couple out with me today. This is about a fourth of my collection. Anyways, today I'm going to be teaching you how to play Sagrada. This is a game for 1 to 4 players where players are artists competing to complete the most beautiful stained glass window. I love this game. It's very easy to teach and super accessible to new board game players. The game also comes with amazing components, and players get to choose one of these beautiful boards to complete as their stained glass window. They'll fill them in using dice. I'm a huge fan of dice games, and this game comes with 90 multicolored dice and this nifty little dice bag to store them in. I personally haven't played the solo version of this game, so this tutorial is going to be for games with 2 or more players. Let's dive right into learning it. Part 1, setting up the game. First, players are dealt 1 private objective card. The private objective cards have a gray die on the back, and these are kept hidden from the rest of the players. Then players are dealt 2 random window pattern cards, which have a front side and a back side. The players will also receive 1 of the window frame boards. The pattern cards slide easily into the window frame board just like this, so players can complete their window and fill in the spaces using dice. Each pattern card also has a difficulty level indicated by the number of dots in the bottom corner. 3 dots is the easiest level and 6 dots is the hardest level, with more dots meaning that it will be more difficult for players to complete the pattern. However, choosing a more difficult pattern will grant players more of these favor tokens, which can be spent towards tool cards during the game to help a player complete their window. Once all players have picked 1 side and 1 pattern, they'll receive a number of favor tokens equal to the difficulty level of their chosen pattern. If a player chose this pattern with a difficulty level of 6, they would receive 6 favor tokens. Players also get a score marker that matches the color of their window frame board. Next, place the round track in the center of the table. Shuffle the deck of tool cards, which have this back, and place 3 face up. Then shuffle the deck of public objective cards, which have a blue die on the back, and also place 3 face up. All 90 dice will go in the dice bag, and a starting player will be randomly selected. Part 2, playing the game. Sagrada is played over 10 rounds, tracked here on the round track board. The starting player will reach into the dice bag and pull out a number of dice equal to 2 times the number of players in the game plus 1. For example, in a 2-player game, the starting player would pull 5 dice. In a 3-player game, the starting player would pull 7 dice. Once the player pulls the appropriate number of dice, they'll roll them to form what's called a draft pool. Then all players will take their turn in clockwise order, beginning with the starting player. There are 2 actions a player can perform on their turn. Each is optional, and actions can be performed in any order. A player can choose to take 1 or 2 of the actions or pass their turn taking no actions. First, a player can select 1 die from the draft pool and place it on an open space of their window. Let's go over the rules for dice placement. The first die a player places in the game must be placed on a space along the outer edge of the window. For example, I could place this green die in the empty corner space of the window. Every other die placed later on in the game must be adjacent to a previously placed die, including diagonally adjacent. I could place this yellow die in the space diagonally adjacent to the green die placed in my previous turn. Dice also have to match the color and value restrictions noted on the pattern. For example, I could only place a blue die onto this blue space. A space with a value can have any color die, but the die's face-up value needs to match the space. White spaces have no restrictions and can contain dice of any color or value. Dice can never share a full side with another die of the same color or value. While I would normally be able to place a red die of any value on this red space, I would not be able to place a red die with a value of 6 because it would share a full side with the purple die that also has a value of 6. While I normally would be able to place a die of any color with a value of 5 on this space, I would not be able to place a blue die with a value of 5 because it would share a full side with the other blue die above it. If during the game a player's window is found to have broken any of the placement rules, they must immediately remove dice of their choice from the window until all restrictions are obeyed. The second action a player may take is to spend 1 favor token to use one of the 3 face-up tool cards and perform its ability. The first time a tool card is used in the game, it will cost 1 favor token. If a card has already been used, meaning there's at least 1 favor token already on it, players must spend 2 favor tokens to use that card. For example, I could spend a favor token to use this Grozing Pliers card. I would then be able to draft a die and increase or decrease its value by 1. If I drafted this red die with a value of 3, I could increase it to a value of 4 or decrease it to a value of 2. Once the last player has completed their first turn, every player will take a second turn in reverse or counterclockwise order. The second turn begins with the last player and ends with the start player of the previous turn. At the end of the round, all remaining dice that weren't drafted are placed on the round track to cover the round number. If more than 1 die is left because a player chose not to draft the die on their turn, simply stack the dice to cover the round number. The dice bag gets passed clockwise to the next player, and the next round begins with this player as the new start player. Part 3, Final Scoring. After the 10th round, the game ends and the dice are cleared from the round track. The round track is flipped over to the score track side, and each player will track their score using their score marker. If their score surpasses 50, they'll turn their marker to the other side to continue tracking. Players tally their victory points starting with each public objective card. They'll score points if they fulfill the public objective in their window pattern and can receive points from each card multiple times. In this example, the player would score 8 points since it has 2 complete columns with no repeating values. They would move their score marker up to the 8th space. The player would score 4 points for the next public objective card since their window has 2 sets of 1 and 2 values, increasing their score from 8 to 12. They would score 6 points from the last public objective card for their 1 row with no repeated colors, increasing their score from 12 to 18. Then players will reveal their private objective card and add up points from fulfilling it. In this example, the player's private objective card gives them points from the sum of values of purple dice in their window. The player would gain 20 points, bumping their score from 18 to 38. Next, players will receive 1 victory point for any unspent favor token they have at the end of the game. This player would receive 1 point for their 1 unspent favor token, bumping their score from 38 to 39. Finally, players must subtract 1 victory point for each open space they have on their window. This player would subtract 2 points from their score, leaving them with a final score of 37. The player with the highest victory point total is the winner. In the case of a tie, the player with the most points from their private objective card is the winner. If there's still a tie, the player with the most remaining favor tokens is the winner. If that still results in a tie, the player seated furthest away in clockwise order from the start player of the final round is the winner. Now you know how to play Sagrada. Thanks so much for joining and hope to catch you next time.